communities during and after Reconstruction, including the tragic pattern of black towns and neighborhoods being destroyed. Mingo Jack and the myth of Northern innocence, black suffering after Reconstruction. In the decades following the Civil War, the United States struggled to redefine itself, torn between the ideals of liberty and the persistence of white supremacy. While the South bore the public stain of slavery and Jim Crow, the North often avoided deep scrutiny. But the lynching of Samuel Mingo Jack Johnson in Eatontown, New Jersey in 1886 lays bare a truth many still struggle to confront. The North was not innocent. It harbored deep racial hostility, facilitated systemic inequality, and in some cases quietly enabled the destruction of thriving black communities. This essay revisits the life and death of Mingo Jack and explores the pattern of anti-black violence and neighborhood destruction that occurred in the North, not out of lawlessness, but from a cold, calculated rejection of black citizenship. The lynching of Mingo Jack. Samuel Johnson, nicknamed Mingo Jack after a famous racehorse he once rode while enslaved, was a well-known figure in Eatontown, New Jersey. Born in 1820, Johnson had lived through slavery, earned freedom, and worked as a laborer and former jockey. By all accounts, he was a peaceful, respected man. That peace ended on the night of March 5th, 1886, when a white woman, Angelina Herbert, was assaulted and falsely claimed Johnson's name. He was arrested and held in the Eatontown jail. But before any investigation or trial could take place, a white mob broke into the jail and brutally lynched him. They beat him senseless, crushed his skull, gouged out one of his eyes, and left his body hanging from the jailhouse window. Despite the brutality of the crime and the fact that another man eventually confessed to the attack on Herbert, no one was ever held accountable. This was not justice. It was public racial vengeance, and it happened not in Alabama or Mississippi, but in the heart of New Jersey. Northern violence and the mirage of equality. The lynching of Mingo Jack was not an isolated event. While lynchings were more common in the South, northern states also hosted racial terror, particularly as black populations grew during the post-war migration. Northern violence was not always mob violence. It was also systemic. Black families were denied access to home loans, blocked by redlining maps created by the federal government. Police brutality against black residents was rarely investigated and often sanctioned. Schools, hospitals, and public institutions were quietly segregated or under-resourced for black communities. Black newspapers were censored, and black organizers often faced harassment or threats for speaking up. But beyond this institutional repression, a deeper horror emerged in both the North and the South: the destruction of entire black towns and neighborhoods. Why were black towns and neighborhoods burned? Between 1865 and the 1930s, hundreds of black communities were razed, burned, or violently dissolved. These included Black Wall Street in Tulsa, 1921, Road, Florida, 1923, Springfield, Illinois, 1908, and many lesser-known places like Seneca Village in New York City, razed to make way for Central Park. But why? 1. Economic jealousy. Black communities, when given even modest autonomy, often flourished. Black-owned businesses, land ownership, schools and churches symbolized economic self-reliance. Many white residents, especially those facing economic hardship, resented black prosperity. Violence was used to eliminate competition. 2. Political fear. In many northern cities, black political organization grew quickly. Voting blocks, newspaper ownership, and labor organizing created a new sense of black power. White political machines often responded with force or repression. 3. Mythology of threat. Accusations, usually false, of black men assaulting white women or committing crimes were used to justify mob violence. These were tools of control, not justice. Mingo Jack's lynching follows this exact pattern: accusation, presumption, execution, no due process. 4. Urban expansion and erasure. As northern cities grew, white planners often targeted black neighborhoods for demolition under the guise of urban renewal. These areas were labeled blighted, removed from maps and cleared for highways, parks, or white housing developments. 5. Racial intimidation as policy. In many communities, organized white supremacist groups such as the Klan, white citizens' councils, or even informal neighborhood watch groups intimidated black residents into leaving or selling their property at loss. A pattern of destruction. In town after town, the result was the same: property lost without compensation, generational wealth erased, public records expunged or falsified, cemeteries paved over or neglected, survivors silenced. In this sense, the North's version of racial violence was no less devastating than the South's. It was simply better disguised. It hid behind legal processes, behind eminent domain, behind riot control, but the outcome was consistent. Black people were denied space, physically, economically, and spiritually. The moral weight of denied citizenship. When slavery ended, black Americans were promised citizenship, not just in legal documents, but in dignity, in opportunity, and in place. But what good is citizenship without protection? What good is the right to vote if the polling place is burned? What good is freedom if your house can be taken by a mob or a zoning board? The destruction of black neighborhoods and the murder of men like Mingo Jack show that citizenship was a theory, not a practice, for black Americans in post-Reconstruction America. They were expected to follow laws, but not be protected by them, to pay taxes, but not receive public investment, to celebrate liberty, but never fully taste it. Today, Mingo Jack is remembered, albeit quietly. A small plaque in Wampum Park in Eatontown, NJ, now marks the site of his lynching. In 2012, the borough issued an official apology, but apologies cannot unmake a hanging. They cannot return stolen dignity. What they can do, if we let them, is force us to confront the full reality of this nation's past. Mingo Jack's story matters because it pierces the myth of Northern purity. It reminds us that racial terror has no border, that freedom denied in the South was also refused in the shadow of the Statue of Liberty. Conclusion: the lynching of Mingo Jack and the widespread destruction of black towns after Reconstruction expose a painful truth. The struggle for black citizenship did not end with abolition. It merely changed form. The mobs changed clothes, the flames became legislation, the nooses became red lines and bulldozers, and still black Americans resisted. Remembering these stories, telling them fully and without apology, is not about guilt, it's about truth. And truth, if we listen to it, might lead us closer to the justice that Mingo Jack never received. Let his name be spoken. Let his story be taught. Let no more black towns be forgotten. 12,150. Let me